in theory. There it is. We should be live. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Jenny.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we want to welcome everybody to the webinar. And I just want to say a few housekeeping things while people come on board and get into the room. First of all, just welcome and hi, and thanks for signing up. We would love to know who's here. So in the chat box, definitely let us know your name and where you're from, and also what you're writing, the genre you're working in, and maybe just a really quick sense of where you are in the process. So just starting, in the middle, revising a draft, already finished, just to give us a sense of who's on the call. That would be really awesome. So if you guys can start doing that, we will then know that you're here and that you can hear us and everything is going well. So we've got quite a lot of people on the call today. So hopefully you guys will maybe know some people or recognize some of the places people are from. That's always fun to see people come into the room. So while people are doing that, and we can make sure that you guys are good to go. Oh, awesome. Okay. Hi, Kate. Thanks. Wi-Fi, revising. Oh, Carol already has a question. We will come back to that. So I will remember, hopefully, Carol, and if I don't, I may ask to type your question. So it's a good question. Great, we have Melanie from Canada and Susan. Mysteries about architects, very interesting.
That was cool.
Yeah, we got middle grade fantasy, a couple of novels in revision. Manette from My Hood in Palos Verdes, California, where it's supposed to be like 105 today or something. Great, so thank you guys for chiming in, that's awesome. So while you continue to let us know who you are and where you're from, I just want to welcome you and introduce myself and introduce my guest today. So my name's Jenny Nash. Oh, who's that?
That's Max.
Max is the fluffiest.
He is. He does not like summers in New Jersey.
Can I hold up my pet, Dan?
Everyone hold up your pets. That's what this is.
Here's my pet.
What is that?
It's a ceramic bear.
That's pathetic, Jenny. I figured maybe it's a hermit crab.
That's what I got for you. My pet doesn't need as much help as your pet. Okay, so now that we've introduced Max and my ceramic bear, I want to introduce myself. I'm Jenny Nash. I am the Chief Creative Officer and founder of Author Accelerator, which is an online program that gives writers weekly accountability and hands-on editorial feedback so you can write the best book you can. In other words, we're affordable book coaching for writers who are serious about getting their books done. I'm also an author of 8 books and a private book coach, and my clients frequently land top New York agents and big, juicy, big 5 book deals. So that is fun. I have a lot of experience, 27 years actually, in publishing. And what we're doing here today is not selling you anything. This is not a sales webinar. Dan and I just from time to time come on and talk to writers about some of the things that concern them the most, and how to connect with readers is one of them. So Dan is the founder of We Grow Media, which is a website that he runs and a variety of services. And the main thing that he does is help writers do that work of connecting with readers. And it's not just building a platform, it's not just marketing books, it really is what that is connecting with readers. He's excellent at it. He works with writers in all genres and at different stages of the process, which we will talk about. And Dan also runs a mastermind group, a creative action mastermind group. And I'll put all the links up to these things I'm talking about in just a minute so you guys can check them out, because if you're anything like me, you'll do that while we're chatting. I'm always the person checking out the links. So I'll get those up in a minute. The reason Dan and I do these things together is we're friends, first of all. And we actually met through the marketing efforts that we both were doing on social media marketing. So we are a living, breathing example of people who met and connected through social media. And we're very aligned in what we believe about getting books into readers' hands. We neither of us believe that there's a fast and easy answer, that there's a silver bullet or a magic solution, or even a best practices. We both believe in intentional, hard, thoughtful, good work. And we share a lot of clients, and we share a lot of ideas, and people come back and forth writing with me, going to Dan to do work on connecting with readers, back and forth, and such. So that's why we are both here talking about this today, because the truth is that connecting with readers starts the minute you start thinking about a book. It should anyway. So I should stop that long introduction and say, hi, Dan, and let you speak.
Hello. Yeah, I, as usual, agree with everything you say.
Easy.
No, it's a good point. I think it's why we have such, like, we have the personal friendship, and then we have the kind of the business relationship. And I think that we focus on different sides of the same coin. And you've always been so proactive about talking about this, where it's, you know, it's just that sense of there's so much value in thinking about the audience as you're crafting the work. And it's not in place of it. It's the type of thing where if this is not a hobby, if this is something you're serious about, there's a lot of long-term value in that. And I've always appreciated that about you.
Yeah, and something else that is fun about both of us is that we are both also doing the work that you guys are doing. We're not just helping people do the work or talking about the work. We're both actually involved in writing and connecting with readers very actively, both of us, in many different ways. So that's something else I really appreciate about Dan and how we're aligned.
I just want to speak to that point for a second. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. This is something I look at with a lot of people online. It's obviously what I love about Jenny, but it's the idea of, is that person doing something creative that is different from, here's my creative idea, which is to show you how to make more money or find more success. Something about it that is creative beyond something that falls into that kind of pyramid scheme thing.
Yeah.
And then two, are they truly in the trenches with people doing this? There's a lot of people I see where it's a lot of cherry picking really great case studies. And I think it's very easy to prove any point where you're cherry picking of all authors or all shoe salesmen or all Italian restaurants and be like, look at what this Italian restaurant did in Boston. And now they're being an authority. It's another thing I think to say, every year I help 40 Italian restaurants open the doors. This is what I find. Just most people I talk to or work with or embody what Jenny is sort of like, you're in the trenches. And it's not easy being in the trenches. And I think that's the fun, creative place to be.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do today is we are going to just start a conversation, and we hope you guys will jump in with questions at any time. They can be general, they can be specific to what you're writing, and we'll do our best to answer them. That's really all we're doing. Towards the end of our conversation, I will just take a minute to talk about Dan's mastermind group, which is starting in July, and what that is, and we'll put up a link for that. And but I want you all to know that next Monday, let me make sure I get that right. Yeah, next Monday, same time and same place, actually. We're going to be doing a Q&A specifically about the mastermind. So that's for people who are actually interested in signing up and want to know the costs and want to know the benefits. And we're going to dig into the details of actually works with people. So if you have questions about that, you can save those for next week, and we'll be giving out links to that as well. The best way to make sure you get those links is by signing up for my newsletter, which is at jennynash.com. I just put up that link. I always send out all the information that's happening on there. So Today is just about you guys and getting books into the hands of readers and connecting with those people. Okay, so the first thing I just want to say is congratulations to Dan. He just came off a really cool event, which he spearheaded and helped plan, and it was just rich and amazing and cool. And it was the Madison Storytellers Festival in Madison, New Jersey, something you conceived with some folks that live there in your town, and we would love to hear about how that went and what it was like, and also why did you do this? Because you spent months on this.
Yes, I just had a coffee with a friend last week. And the Storytellers Festival is basically a downtown festival celebrating storytelling in all its forms. We had like 2 or 3 dozen speakers on 4 different stages. But he sat down and he was like, so like, you know, how do you get money out of this? What's the business angle? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's a festival downtown. He's like, yeah. But if you're a business, though, are you the sponsor? You're like, and I was like, no, I'm just helping spread the arts in my community. He's just sitting there shaking his head. Like, you know, like, how can you justify spending time on a creative work that doesn't have a business goal? And I thought that was just very funny. I thought it's a very maybe New York mindset. We were in New York at the time. So the idea basically about when 2 local friends had coffee in January. He runs a small press. She runs a small bookstore. And they talked about doing a festival for local indie presses. And she immediately kind of looped me into it and looped in 2 or 3 other people. And we had coffee and bagels. And like my whole first goal from this was to pivot. One, I love the idea of a festival. I love the idea of these people. My first idea was to pivot away from the small indie press festival because I just didn't see it as something that would have a broad appeal to the community. That's where the idea of storytelling came up, the idea of storytelling in music, storytelling in rap, storytelling in graffiti, in spoken word, in dance, and really looping into all of the creative arts in our community and just showcasing that and having workshops and having speakers and all of that. So long story short, we had it on June 11th. It was 4 different stages right downtown here. We had more than 30 people presenting, more than 20 sessions, and vendors. And the bottom line is that it worked. It was a new festival. It was from like 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. It was way bigger than we needed for it to be. Our town was very supportive of it. And I learned so much in the process about what it means to kind of find the people who can help you make this. And I guess the one point I'll make before I take a breath is it's all about the people that got involved. Because when I think about it, I think of Barb and Dan who started the idea, and then there was a steering committee of like 6 of us. And in general, there was the town supported us. There was a handful of people who we could say, can we close off this street? Can we get the cops to redirect traffic? Can we get a stage? And they just like, they're already texting. Like they know who to text at the town hall, who to text in the police force, which parent has tents that they donate to these things. And you see these people and you're like, these people are literally magic. They know how to make things happen. And to just experience this with them, it felt exactly that. It felt magical to just be a part of that. So I'll take a breath, sorry.
Well, no, there's so many things you bring up here because when people think about marketing, creative products or books or whatever it is that they're making, they tend to get a lot of things wrong about how it works or what it means. And what you were doing there's so many things. I mean, it was hands-on, it was face-to-face, it didn't have a particular goal, as you said, but it had, like, it wasn't a business goal, like I shall sell X number of, whatever, or get X number of people. It was about building community and connecting with the people that you want to connect with to do all the things you want to do. So just that mindset, I think, is something I would like to explore a little bit. Because you and I talk a lot about the thing that writers get wrong, the first thing that they tend to get wrong that you see. And do you want to say what that is?
Yeah. Well, I'll say it as it relates to the festival, it wasn't about the idea, it was about the people. So right away I was thinking of How do you connect with people in a generous way who already do this kind of thing in town and know how to make it happen? When Barb and Dan had that meeting and they instantly emailed me and 4 other people, that was Barb saying, I don't need to own this with Dan. I need to pull in people who are passionate and capable. So right away, she did that, and we kept doing that. And the second thing was thinking about not Dan's original idea of saying, this is all about showcasing indie presses. It was about the community. Let's think about the makeup of Madison. Let's think about the adults and the kids and the seniors. What do they need? What do they respond to? So immediately, it wasn't about, I have this great idea, and going back to the idea and then coveting the idea. It was very much about expanding the idea. And I would say right away, vetting it. Because when we had that meeting of bagels and I started taking Dan's idea, which was a great idea, and just pulling it in a different direction, kudos to him, because he went with it. And everyone kind of went with it, and we all had to do that. And it really was thinking about, what are the businesses in town? Oh, there's Dance Innovations. We should call them, get them involved. There's Dewey's Comic Shop. What can they do? We've got to call the mayor. He's got to give a talk. So we started thinking about not this idea in a vacuum of like, look how awesome my idea is. If I do this right, people will just find it. We thought about, people are they're gonna ignore this idea unless I think about them with empathy. What do they respond to? What do they love? Who do they know already? And pull them in. And by pulling in someone like the Downtown Development Commission, who ended up kind of owning the event officially. We have like Lisa Ellis, who's this local magician, local person who was able to just feel ownership. And we're like, oh, can we put signs up on corners? Lisa's there. Yeah, we can do that. Like, she just knows who to text. And it was like, wow. So that's the first thing I think with a lot of authors is not coveting your idea so much that one, you hide it, which too many authors do. And I'll give you an example with my book about that. And then 2, thinking about the context. Who is this for? What do they care about? And what are the communities that already exist? Who do they look to for this? Who's already doing this? Because all of that helps you understand how you can take this idea, which is now lonely and maybe not that good yet, and how you can start connecting it to the community that's full of enthusiasm. And that's what we're tapping into, was enthusiasm.
So, Dan, we have a great question from Diane, who is writing middle grade fiction directed toward reluctant young male readers, which, before we even get any further, yay, Diane, for even being able to say something that clearly is awesome. So what she's saying is that these readers are not likely to be milling about in a bookstore or library to find a book, nor would they subscribe to an author's blog. So how can she begin to think about where to find those readers?
Okay, so I'm trying to think if I can tell you this example, and I'm going to go with yes. Because this is work I'm doing with a client right now. She has several books published by big publishers, just pivoted. Now she has a 3-book deal for middle grade with a large publisher, and I'm helping her kind of make that pivot, make that switch. And in doing so, we set up a whole new platform for her, and new messaging. We've got to tell that story. If you type in her name, you see a bunch of books for adults. You don't see this book coming out, whole platform. And we're talking about, well, what do people already, because we're talking about kids, we're talking about the connectors. We're talking about teachers and librarians and parents. You can't just you just can't just market to kids as easily as you can market to parents. And one of the things that came up is exactly that, reluctant readers. It just comes up again and again. So what she's been doing is finding out. So a lot of the assignments I've been giving her is, you know, how many indie bookstores in your area? She's like 12. And I'm like, talk to them. And she's going out and talking to them. She's finding out the names, where they are. She's going there. She's meeting the people who own it or run the children's section. And she's asking them about exactly this challenge. She's going to the libraries, asking the same thing. Doing it in the school districts as well, in school libraries. So she had a connection to a school librarian, and she was actually able to, this is just so awesome. She got a group of, I think it was 6 5th grade girls to become beta readers for her book that doesn't come out until next year. They got an early copy of the book, so this is like 9 months early, ahead of time, and they met with her and they gave her feedback on the book. The parents were involved, obviously. The kids loved it. The librarian handpicked these. These are like the best readers, so it's not the reluctant readers, but it's the idea. it was very much about thinking about, well, who are the connectors? And then how can I learn from them? So instead of us figuring out, let me think of this, like talk to the librarians, talk to indie bookstores, figure out a way in to talk to teachers, figure out what organizations support reading in your community, maybe Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, to start there. And I think you're gonna start having a couple basic questions about. You can ask about kids and reading or whatever, and you'll start hearing phrases again and again. This will give you an indication. So one thing that we're doing with her is we're creating basically like an ebook about this topic. I won't go into it more than that because that might be crossing a line of sharing too much. But we're kind of taking this and we're trying to basically give back to these people what we know that they want. And then as we develop that, we're kind of treating this free ebook as if it is a proper book launch. Not quite that much, but she's got like 9 months before a book comes out. And that's a problem for people because when you don't have like a deadline, like everyone, my book comes out next week, and it's hard to get excited, hard to frame something. So we're using this like a framing technique. And I guess the one last example I'll give with that is I helped a client run a Kickstarter campaign last year. And I have to say, she asked for way more money than I ever thought she could get. I told her that she was just like, it's not gonna work. I was so clear, I'm like, I'm telling you, this is way too much. And she got it. And she got it because of the framing and mechanism of that deadline. And I think that as you're in that middle area, you need to sometimes create these artificial things to get people's attention. So I'm not sure if I specifically answered the question. I answered around the question at the very least, but feel free to ask follow-up questions, Jenny, or whoever asked that.
Yeah, so Joanne has a follow-up question about a romantic comedy of sorts. And she was saying, would you look for a book club to be beta readers in the way the grade 5 kids were in Dan's example? And that's a great way to begin to think, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think it's difficult. I think a lot of book clubs, they read what, 12 books a year? I mean, a lot of times they have a lot of authors now vying for their attention, and they're very selective. And they often want to be very careful to choose something that they know is going to be meaningful, because if I'm the person running the book club and there are 9 local friends, like, I don't want to use up that social capital because people drop out of book clubs or they get mad at the choices. So I think that I love that idea. I would pull on that thread, but just think about, like, sometimes we say book clubs, and you get excited because they're pre-organized for you. They've done all of the work of organizing themselves for you. The problem with that is that now a lot of authors are targeting them. So sometimes you have to say, okay, the local book clubs haven't responded to me. What if I create my own? What if I create my own program? What if I do a contest? What if I loop in the schools? Or sometimes, like the Storytellers Festival, we didn't approach our big downtown festival, which is in the fall, and say, can we have a storytelling track? We did something in June when there was no festivals. It was a lot more work, but we did create something new, and we basically created what we wanted to see. We had a lot of options with that, but I love that thread that you're starting to pull on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have actually done what you're suggesting, Joanne, with my own work. I have gone to a book club and had them beta read a manuscript, and it was way more work than I imagined it was going to be. And I'm not sure that the result was what I hoped it would be, because to Dan's point, they are designed to. There's the social aspect for sure. You know, it's so much about the wine and the cake that somebody made, and chatting about their kids. And I was there, like, well, come on, tell me what you thought on page 3, and what did you think of chapter 5, and did you think it fell apart in chapter 27? And I was like, are you laughing?
I'm laughing because I'm empathizing with you.
What?
I'm empathizing with you. That's empathy laughter.
Yeah, I mean, I was just way more. I cared about my book way more than they did, and in that moment, and in that idea. And Joanna's asking, how was it more work? I mean, they had 28 members. I had to make 28 hardbound copies at Kinko's for each of them, you know, comb bound, which was money and effort and time. Then each of them, I asked them to write in those on the hard copy, and some of them forgot to bring them to the book clubs. So then I would offer to go to their house and pick it up, or, you know, to send them a prepaid envelope to send it back to me if they didn't live really close by. Now I have in my office, just picture 28, you know, hard copy. I mean, I could go on and on. It was a lot of work. But the point is that sometimes what you think is the easy solution is not the best solution. So when Dan says pull on the thread of that idea, what he's saying, I think, is don't just take that first obvious idea. Like, it's great that you know who your audience is and where you might find them, but that's just level one. Like, you've got to go way down and really drill down into it. And this is the work. This is what we mean when we talk about it takes time. It takes preparation. It takes effort. You can't just kind of snap your fingers and have it work. So I don't know if that answers that question from Joanne. But we had a great question from Caro earlier that ties into this, where she asked about, well, what do you do if you write different genres? And she mentions that she's got crime and adventure and family drama. And that sort of ties into the example you were giving us, Dan, of the person who had different things on their website and they were not serving the one or the other. So how do you approach that?
So I think there's, I mean, I'll do the simple two different examples. Like, sometimes there's one where you write for children, and then you write, you know, children's picture books, and then you also write erotica. And there are scenarios where you say, well, these are two different platforms. There's maybe a pen name, or there's two different websites, and writing across them has to be two completely different strategies, not because one would be offensive to the other, but the idea that you're appealing to such completely different audiences. There's no crossover whatsoever. Who you need to know, how you need to market is so completely different that you treat it as if you have, like, you know, you're a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a business side of what they do, or how a lot of authors have a day job. Like, I'm an accountant during the day, and I'm a romance novelist at night. You know, LinkedIn is their public profile for that life, and they've got a website for their author life. With most authors, though, I talk to, there's often a thread. We'll go back to that thread, and it's that narrative that ties things together. So right away, it's like crime, action, and family drama. So right away, there's that sense of drama to them. There's something that ties them together. You might have to market each book differently, but you can easily write a thread of who you are, what excites you, and what you write that kind of ties those things together. You can think about that, where with crime and action and family, where it's something about the character and motivation. Somebody wants something, and there's that drama. And you just see that everywhere in life, and that infuses all three of these books. You tend to love characters who are this or that. So there's a way to have a broad why and a broad explanation. And then you could find that, oh yeah, I've got this 3-book deal or this 3-book series. So for the next couple of years, I'm focused on the action thing. I would bet that you're not writing and publishing 3 genres all at once. So you might also have to then kind of focus it. There's a lot of people that come to me and they say, work on this book of poems and short stories, and then I've got this novel, then I'm doing this illustration. And they say it like it's all in their head, which is all like all up front. When you scratch the surface a bit, you find, oh, they're doing the children's book first. The poems are completely a hobby. The novel is at least 3 years away. And suddenly you start realizing there's an order here. So we set up a platform that can speak to both, but first we focus on that first step. And then we think, you know, in a year and a half, we'll have to start kind of pivoting over a little bit because we're moving into that next thing.
Well, I want to speak to that a little bit because I see this a lot. And for some reason I see it, I've been seeing it more and more, which is exactly what you're describing. A writer will come to me with help on a project. Maybe they want help revising a novel. And then same thing. It's like the first of 6 novels, and it's a series, and they're each 700 pages. And then I've got a spin-off, and it's going to be for middle grade. And then there's the YA version, and then I've got the memoir and whatever. And you know, I think a lot of times people use I mean, here's the thing. Creative people have ideas. That is what we do. That is what we're good at. That is our superpower. And we should lean into that. I am the queen of having 9 million ideas, as Dan will attest. And my team at Author Accelerator every single day is saying, great idea, Jenny, but no. So, I mean, I totally get that impulse. Creators create. We have ideas. It's not gonna, you can't turn the tap off. But that being said, I often see people using this idea of so many ideas as a kind of a form of procrastination. Like, if I've got 47 things and I'm all moving them forward a little bit, I don't have to actually focus on anything. I don't have to actually commit to anything. I don't have to actually sit down and say, these are my goals. So Joanne asked a follow-up question about the book club and the romantic comedy, and she was saying, so should I find a book club where the people are interested in reading? So this is what we're talking, you know, interested in reading her kind of book in a beta. This is what we're talking about, is you need to really spend some time thinking about exactly who that reader is. Not just sort of general like book clubs or book clubs where they want to be beta readers, but really exactly what kind of person would read your exact book. And that means, you know, this is the work that Dan is so genius at in his mastermind, is really digging in. Like, before you get to say, I'm sending my book out to a book club for a beta read, you have to spend, I'm going to venture, months really digging into who that reader is, what they want, why would they care, what else do they love, where are they already paying attention, you know, what keeps them up at night, all these questions, so that you really know who they are. And then it's much easier to focus on them and to, it's actually ironically exactly the problem that fiction writers have writing fiction is, you know, a story is not a story in general. A story is specifically what this exact story on the page. And it's the same with your marketing story. It's not enough to say, women who like romantic comedies are in book club. It's not enough. You got to drill down into that more. So I don't know, you're laughing at me again.
I'm smiling and nodding with you. I will say that Kara followed up saying that I've written one book in each genre and then doing a follow-up for each. Still, I think that's something I'd have to dig into more, because it just sounds like I'm publishing 3 books at a time in every genre, and it's the kind of thing where clearly that's important to you. And this is where sometimes when I'm working with someone, I have to understand what is the important creative goal that they have, the internal fire that drives them, and then how does or doesn't it relate to the marketing business environment. Too many people tell you, like, you see this a lot in genres where it's like, you have to do a series. Don't even launch the series like you've got 3 books in the bag. And I get the theory behind that. But the thing I'm really big with is I grew up as the artist in my family. I was always the one, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, in my 20s, these crazy art projects, all different genres. I think that has to be respected. I think you have to also write down what that is for you. Identify, well, what is the business side of this? What are my expectations and my hopes for that? Really getting clear on that, but also attending to that thing of, well, what is that personal drive for me? You've got to really be aware of that, because if there's so many decisions to be made, you'll bounce back and forth like a ping pong ball unless you really understand, why are you writing in 3 genres? Why all at once? Is it just a creative thing? I got to do it. It's got to get done that way, and now everything else will deal, or is it you think you've got a strategy? And I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a bunch of great questions, and we're going to hopefully get to them all. So thank you guys, and keep them coming. So Susan and Lorraine, I have your questions. Don't worry, but I'm going to look for a way to fold them in a way that makes a little more sense. What Minette is asking is related very much to what we're talking about, which is, why do you even care about doing this while you're writing or before your book comes out? And she says that she writes a daily blog that's not directly related to the book she's writing, but was the seed for it. How important is it that I seek to create a following if I'm interested in pursuing the traditional publishing route? This is a question at the heart of what we're talking about. And Dan, I'm sure we could both talk for hours on this, but do you want to take a quick
Well, I'll try to be quick about it. I mean, I'm writing a book. I've been online for a long time. I've had a blog for 10 years. I've had an email newsletter for 10 years, a blog for almost 10 years, all the social platforms, thousands of followers, spoken at dozens upon dozens of events. I've done hundreds of webinars. Everything I do feels somewhat public. I've done this event, all of that. I still don't feel I have a platform enough to get the publishing deal that I want, in a way. And I think that it's important for this. It's important that you know the market, that you know the reader, because you're asking for a partner in this process. That's an agent and a publisher, and there's all kinds of people underneath those umbrellas. And what they need help with is to understand the market. How does this book fit into what they know? And can you help them do what you're expecting of them, which is put it into readers' hands? None of these people have magic wands. They work very hard. They have a lot on their plate. And they need to see how it fits into a market. They need to see that you are a team player who either has in the past or will in the future, has the capability to connect the idea of what it is to getting people to care about it. Because if you can prove that to them, they feel better about their life. Because this is why we always see the idea of like some B-list celebrity getting a book deal for a lot of money, and you roll your eyes and you say a curse out loud. But to a publisher, what it means is like, they might say like, look, I don't know why Kim Kardashian is popular, but what I know is she has tapped into something that is very hard to tap into. And we try every day to do that with all these books every season. You know what? Most of the time we get it wrong. Every now and again we have a hit. So if I can tap into that Kim Kardashian magic, and that will help us be successful, why am I ignoring that? I think there's a realistic sense of that they want to see that when you're in it with them and that you're helping them figure that out.
Well, and what Dan's talking about is the really basic level reality that publishing is a business, and publishing is actually a really big business. There's this sort of bizarre notion that publishing is over or dying or something. I mean, people are making a killing in publishing. These big publishers are big companies, and they have, big bottom lines, and they are there to make money. That is absolutely 100% why they exist. Now, that's not to say that all the people that work there, in my opinion, tend to be largely lovely people who love books and who want to work in this realm, because otherwise they would go work for Goldman Sachs or Wells Fargo. But people are drawn to the business because of their love for books. That is absolutely true, but love is not what's driving their decisions. What's driving their decisions is sales. They need to produce books that sell, and the traditional publishers are looking for books that are going to sell on a national scale, and you need something to prove it to them. That's absolutely the only thing that a book proposal is designed to do, is to show them what your book is, who the target market is, what the competition is, why anybody would care, and how you're going to connect with readers. And if they don't see evidence for that on the page, and evidence, people say, oh, okay, well, how many blog followers do I need? How many Facebook likes do I need? I can do that. And it's like, well, that's not really what it is. There's no number. They can't give you a number. I work with a lot of people at the book proposal stage, and I'm very good at that particular thing, helping writers with book proposals. And so I'm on the front lines because I help them then send the proposals directly to the agents. So I see every day what agents are sending back to writers and what they're responding to with the proposals. And I see when the agents say, this is a fantastic proposal, I know what they're responding to. And I also see that sometimes what they'll say is, this is a great idea. You're a great person to write this book. We love this. We would love to get behind it. Come back to us when you have more of a following. I mean, we see that. I see that every day. And they're not going to tell you, come back to us when you have 5,000 people, or come back to us when it's not about that. They just want the evidence. So if you're going for a traditional publishing deal, as Dan said, it's a long-term game. And you need to really think about that in terms of, okay, this is a business. How much time can I invest in this? How much money can I invest in it? Where should I put my energy in order to do this? And again, that's the work that Dan helps writers do. Is it's very strategic. It's not just, well, I wrote this book and I love it and I want to sell it. It's once you finish writing, well, that's not actually true. It should be once you start writing. It should be all the way through. But once you finish writing, there is a switch that gets flipped, and your book no longer is the thing that you made that's from your heart and soul that you love. It's a product, and it's no different from toothpaste, and it's going to be sold in the same way.
Out of this whole call, what you're going to find is that's going to be the tweet that gets retweeted, like, a book is no different than toothpaste. Jenny Nash.
Well, my
follow you your whole life.
I actually say that a lot. My college-age daughter was home this week in between her school terms, and she goes to school in rural New Hampshire, so she's kind of off the grid in a way. And we went to, I can't remember what store it was. I feel like it must have been Rite Aid, which is like CVS. And we're walking down the thing, and she's like, why does the world need so many kinds of deodorant? And why does the world need a whole aisle of toothbrushes? And she's in that very idealistic college girl mode, I
love it.
But I mean, it's actually, if you think about it, it's exactly the same with books. The bookstores are lined. I mean, I was at Costco this weekend, and books and books and books and books and books. And why should your book be among them? That's really what you're trying to answer. So you cannot go with the book proposal that says, Oprah will love my book, and all the people that Oprah, follow Oprah. It's just, that's not going to speak to them. They get 300 pitches a week, and you've got to bring something very specific. And do you want to speak to that, Dan?
Yeah. Because I mean, I've had plenty of authors come to me saying, yeah, the agent said I need 10,000 Twitter followers. And it's not that they want that. What they want is that you know how to call exactly the right people who connect with these readers. I'm thinking right now of a client that I think both of us are or have worked with, who seems to be masterful at making connections, at pursuing, what are they, just cold calling people and finding a way in. And there's a charisma to that, there's a drive to that, but there's mostly just a deep sense of why. You know what drives you. And it's not a matter of like, well, how do I pitch my blog to whatever? It's like, no. You've got to connect with these people. You have to know if this is you in your book, and this is the audience, and there's these people in the middle of blogs and podcasts and other books, you have to connect with them on that why level, that you are the same, that you understand them, they understand you. Who are they? What do they care about? Like, what do they deeply care about? And how can you help them connect with what they care about? And that can be anything from, on the topic, you can say, wow, this blogger, I know that they really believe passionately in saving these dogs from shelters or whatever. And it's like, if that's your in and you believe in that too, then that's your in. It really is a matter of like thinking about every step of that process of what drives that end reader and what drives the people that connect to them. I have a friend who's a publicist, and she's worked in all the big media. And she'll say, she's like, I've been in those meetings dozens and dozens of times where you go in from the publisher with the list of here's all the books we're doing, to the woman who books for the Today Show. And she takes the fiction section, flips right past it, goes right to nonfiction and memoir, because they just don't cover fiction unless there's some other angle with the author. And with media in general, it's like there's this advice of they're never going to talk about your book. They will never talk about your book. But if you can pitch your book in a way to what they're already talking about, oh yeah, we're all talking about sexism because of that Stanford case and whatever. Oh, your book speaks to that. We can bring you in as an expert in sexism. Yeah, we'll mention your book. That's no problem. People who are really good at that, they know how to take the narrative that people already care about and shoehorning in these books into that narrative. And then they train the author how to speak to that. And that's how media works with authors. And I think a lot of authors don't get that. They think, I have a product. How can I get the world to talk about my product? And nobody wants to talk about your product.
I just want to stop and highlight what Dan's saying, because it's so important that what I always say is it's the story behind the story. And that's even true with memoir. It's even true with nonfiction. It's absolutely true with fiction. What's the story behind the story? Who are you as it connects with this topic? What do you bring to the table? What is your particular superpower? What is that story behind the story? And you've got to figure that out, and then start connecting around those ideas. It's not only what's on the page. It's oftentimes 100% what's not on the page. And the way I sometimes get people to think about this is I do an exercise in my classes at UCLA where I ask people to imagine that they are in fact going on Oprah. Oprah is not going to ask you about your book. She's going to assume that everybody's read the book. By the time Oprah's paid attention to it, the book has sold 10 million copies, and everybody knows what the book is about. What she's going to ask you is, why did you write this book? Why did you care about this book? Why did you spend 10 years on this book? Why does this matter to you? And a perfect current example of this is my current obsession of.
I knew this was going to come up.
Right? I love him so much. Look at this. This is the book. It's like, but everybody, if you obsessively search for his name in everything, which I do, you will see that mostly people are not talking about what he wrote in Hamilton and the American Revolution. Some people a little bit are, and that certainly bubbled up, and the longer it goes on, the more it bubbles up. But they're talking about, who is this guy? He wrote his first play when he was a sophomore at Wesleyan. That's the big story. And he wrote it, if you look up his graduation speech that he gave at Penn this year, UPenn, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda at UPenn, you'll see he just is telling the story of his story, that his girlfriend left him and he was sad sophomore year, and so he wrote this thing and it happened to win a Tony. And I mean, that's what everybody wants to know. So I think it's a really, really key point. Okay, I want to turn to a couple of things about some specific questions. Lorraine is asking about book trailers, whether they work, if we recommend them. I think, Lorraine, if you can confirm you're writing historical fiction, that might help a little bit. But Lorraine is talking about getting a media kit together and working on a book trailer. I have some thoughts about this, but Dan, you want to take a stab?
Well, I mean, my first question is, who cares? Like, who cares about this? And I don't mean that to imply that nobody cares. When I think of a media kit, it's a matter of, well, who is that serving? Who cares about this media kit? And you think of media. So, okay, newspapers, blogs, radio. What is their need with the media kit? It's like you have to think about the human factor. What problem are you solving? You have to think very specifically about, oh, I'm going to be on a podcast. They need media kit, right? Well, let's think about the team behind the podcast. What do they need from you? Like, is it really hard to get that? It's like a lot of people create like a brochure or a logo or a business card. And it's like, if you're spending so much time on that, it's like getting to the podcast is what really matters. The media kit, the trailer is a little different, but I often think, well, what need is this solving? Even an entertainment need. Is this what engages readers, which is a different kind of audience? If so, what does that trailer have to have in it? Is it behind the scenes? Is it obviously the lamest possible version of like a clip art driven trailer? Like, we know how to snip these things out now. So I've seen a lot of trailers that are inventive and funny, and they just get your attention, which is what you want. And I've seen plenty of them that are just, I don't mean to sound so negative, but pathetic. Pathetic. I got some clip art. I got some royalty-free music. It goes super slow because I've got to fill 3 minutes, and it doesn't really do anything. It's like, a tale of our time. And it flashes out, a heroine's journey flashes out. And you're just like, it's like pulling teeth, and it's like, I don't begrudge the person who made it. I get it. This is them feeling, it's like seeing their vision. But from a reader perspective, a bookstore, like, what is it really serving them? And I think that's the question I would ask is, who cares? And then it's like, well, why do they care? It's not a negative question. It's a positive question.
There are some examples of businesses that have put a whole bunch of firepower and weight into what amounts to book trailers for their product. So I'm kind of talking about the same thing because, you know, we live in this YouTube culture, and a good video can absolutely be picked up and spread around. But by good video, like my favorite example is the Dollar Shave Club. I don't know if anybody is familiar with, but I'm a little bit obsessed with these people too. So the Dollar Shave Club is this business where they deliver razor blades to men because at a cheap price right to your house. So you don't have to go to the CVS with 4 million things and spend a bunch of money and time and whatever. It's like you shave every month, you need the razor, we're going to send it to you, and that's the play. And the guy whose name escapes me at the moment, apparently the lore, so this is a story behind the story. He apparently spent $5,000 to shoot a video, and it's hilarious. And it's in the warehouse, and it has these players, and it's a sort of spoof on what they're doing. It's very sort of it's sort of ironic. It's exactly who their audience is, like speaking to that, what I think of as like the Carl's Jr. Viewer, like this sort of irreverent young guy who thinks it's bogus to go buy the razor. It just speaks right to those people, and it's hilarious. And it launched their entire business. But just the fact that they spent $5,000 making this, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of investment. Now, this is a big business with venture capital money and such. But if you're going to do it, you need to do it well. You need to know why you're doing it. You need to know where that book trailer fits in your whole universe, your whole strategy. And again, that's the work Dan does. It's not just like, I want to make a book trailer. What should I have it be? It's all the work behind that, about what he was saying, like who's going to care? Why are they going to share this one, if anybody, And I also saw another one that just started getting a lot of play on social media. And these are big companies, I know that, but this is your competition. This is what people share. There's this Seventh Generation, which is that environmental paper products people.
They do like environmental cleaners and stuff.
Yeah. And they just launched a video with the Saturday Night Live comedian Maya Rudolph, where she's kind of freestyle rapping this absolutely hilarious video about tampons. And you're like, really? But it is getting shared so much. If you look it up and you'll see why. It's goofy, it's hilarious, it's targeted exactly at their user who doesn't want chemicals anywhere near their body or their house or whatever. It's genius. And if you just look at those examples of, these are the A-list people doing these kinds of things, but you can start studying what they do, why they do it, why it worked, and try to bring that same power to your book trailer. So that, like Dan said, it's not just, let me spend a few minutes telling you about my story. It's really tapping into something more primal than that.
And let me give you just one example. I know we're spending a lot of time on this question, but there's something that makes me sad when I talk to an author who really says, like, I'm really in it, and they can't list 5 people who represent their ideal readers, like 5 names. And in addition to that, 5 people who are kind of colleagues, who exist in the same professional spaces they do. Again, it could be a librarian, a writer, someone in the media. Because I think that when you have that, the 5 and 5, you can go and talk to them. You can kind of find out. And the example that always resonated with me with this from another industry was, I saw Joe Gebbia, who's one of the founders of Airbnb, speak once. He talked about, Airbnb, and we launched, and it was hard, and then we had this big spike. We did this thing, and then it went really down. We struggled. And then we spiked. We did this great thing. We were breaking out, and then it went down, and we were just struggling again. And he said at that point, his advisor said, go meet your people. Go meet these people renting out Airbnb places. And he and his 2 co-founders went and they just stayed at Airbnb places. They spent a lot of time with people who are renting out their homes for Airbnb. And he said, this is how we learned about what motivated these people and the culture of these people. And after that is when they were finally able to really make movement that was sustainable for them. And it was that whole thing of just get to know your people. It's so basic, and people avoid it. And I have this, I'll call it a theory, although I think it's fact. I think that we're all still in high school. I think that we're all still terrified of standing in front of the classroom, walking into a lunchroom on first day and not knowing where to sit. We're terrified of talking to that boy or that girl. We have these social fears as adults. And I think because of that, we justify that if I just download this new Amazon algorithm app, my book will take off. When really it's like you've got to start emailing and calling and showing up and getting to know people, because that's how success happens. That festival I did that we start off, it was all about people. It was all about calling someone up and asking something and being vulnerable. And that's how business gets done.
That's absolutely true. I want to, before we get to the end of our time, I want to make sure we answer Susan's question. She's asking specifically about Amazon reviews. And what's interesting to me is that she does have a strategy. Susan is talking about wanting to beef up her Amazon reviews in order to do a BookBub promotion. And I happen to know a lot about BookBub because my daughter works there. I've been desperately trying to get her to give me the insider secrets, and she won't. It's preposterous. But BookBub is a ebook reader discoverability and marketing platform, for those of you who don't know, and they just started taking author ads. And a successful BookBub promotion can be enormously awesome for a writer, but you do have to have some things in place, like a certain number of Amazon reviews. So Susan is saying that she's having some trouble with Amazon disallowing reviews. Sometimes Amazon disallows reviews from other writers or personal friends, and she's not talking about that. And I'm a little bit confused about the question specifically, Susan, but I think what I'm hearing is that you're having trouble. Maybe it's, I thought you were having trouble getting people to write reviews, but it sounds like you're having trouble with Amazon itself. And I wouldn't be able to answer that question without digging into what your book is about and what's happening specifically on that. Are you able to speak to that, Dan, about Amazon taking reviews down?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to be that, yeah, I mean, this is the thing with Amazon. So I thought that what she was saying, I don't have in front of me, was that, yeah, people that she knows who are friends and colleagues and family are leaving reviews, and Amazon is taking them down because it is assessing that, hey, this is a friend, we want more objective reviews. I think that's part of the ecosystem here. So there was a meme, not a meme, a true thing that went around recently, which is when you send out that link on social media, hey, leave a review on Amazon, you'll see in the code, there's like the code to your book, and then there's like a question mark, and then there's basically code that says how you found them. So Amazon is tracking everything. So it can notice if you, the author, copied your code and shared it, that, oh, this came from the author. So they want objectivity. And I have a lot of empathy for that. So part of it is, I think it's, you have to know some of the little tricks around that. But I think that this is really just motivation of saying, yeah, you've got to start with your inner circle. I'm a huge believer in that, but you've got to start breaking out beyond that. If it's only family and friends, you've got to think about that. What's the next layer of the onion? The friends of friends, the local people in the community, the blog or the podcast, something where it's a half generation away, because you can't control what Amazon or Facebook does. That's the frustrating part about Amazon and Facebook. They have rules and algorithms that they never tell you that they even exist, or how to work within them. So we're left guessing. And they're tracking everything. While I was talking on this call, my Siri went off, because if I say the words, hey Siri, this will actually start listening to me. So I don't have to do anything. So something I said in this call, my phone was sitting here listening to me, waiting to hear the words, hey Siri. And that is how everything around us is getting. And Amazon is always watching. And it's about, I think when you understand that, it's not a matter of how to get around that. It's like, okay, I get why they're doing it. Let me get to the next layer of the onion.
So Susan, maybe you can let us know if that answered a little bit of what you're talking about. I know it's the top of the hour, and Dan, I can stay on a little longer if you were able to. Is that
a little bit longer, 10 minutes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do in case people have to go is I want to put up the link for Dan's mastermind group, which is starting July 1st. and is awesome. And next week we will be doing a specific call about it. So that's the link for the mastermind itself. This is the link for the call next week. It's going to be just like this one where Dan and I come on and we talk about how his mastermind works and why you might want to think about doing it and what the benefits are. And I just have to say, this is the best thing that I know for writers. It's the only way that works, and it's with Dan, which makes it super awesome. But it's very, very powerful. I have a lot of writers that I send to the mastermind because it's the only thing that I believe to work. So there's the link for our call. So the mastermind is 3 months. It's I'll just tell you very quickly, $750 split in 3 payments. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be held accountable for your creative goals. You're going to start thinking about what those goals are. You're going to get strategic about these ideas, and you're going to be in collaboration with other creative people and with Dan who are doing the same thing. So you're not just out there by yourself going, you know, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do the other thing. You're weighing, you're measuring, you're coming up with the task that you're going to do that week, and you're going out and doing it. And it's very powerful, this collaborative work. It's what we do at Author Accelerator as well, where you're in editorial collaboration with somebody else around your work. So you're not just alone, you're working with somebody else. So we would love to have you come back next week if you're interested in learning more about that mastermind. We'd love to have you check out Author Accelerator if you're needing help getting the writing done. If you want to make sure to get all of my free webinars, because I have like 1 million of them and they're awesome, just sign up at jennynash.com for my newsletter. So that's all the sales stuff we're doing. And we can stay on about 10 more minutes answering additional questions if anybody has them. If we answered everything, I'm sure we did not. But Lorraine, I would love to hear specifically from you if we answered your question about the book trailer, and Susan, if that helped you a little bit with the Amazon problem. I've seen a lot of authors doing some very interesting things, giving away books for free in order to get the reviews. And sometimes people actually use a BookBub promotion specifically to do that, they do a free promotion in order to get reviews. So Salima is saying, since my story is the story in a memoir, might that be what problem I am solving by writing it? Oh dear, I don't think I understand the question, Salima. Maybe you can reframe that. Lacey, thank you for joining us. You're welcome. And Joanne as well, who had to run. Salima's talking about the story behind the story of memoir, and sometimes that can be confusing for people because it's like, well, isn't my memoir the story? Usually not. A memoir is not a story of a life. It's not an autobiography. It's usually a slice of a life. It's making a particular point. It's speaking to a particular reader at a particular point in their life. And the story behind the story sometimes is about why you decided to write that book, why you decided to write it now. There's a really beautiful example of a book whose name escapes me at the moment, but it came out last year. It was called Worn, I believe, W-O-R-N, or maybe it was Worn Clothing. Definitely had the word W-O-R-N in it. And it was a woman who wrote a memoir about the different clothes that people wear, why they love them, why they bought them, how they live with these clothes. It was like the story of clothes. It was a really beautiful idea. She interviewed a lot of people. She went to thrift stores, which is where she said clothes go to die. I heard her on an interview, and the second I heard that, I'm like, I have to get this book. I mean, that's amazing. Where clothes go to die, like, it's so cool. But
wait, so this is a point I want to, wait, can I just cut in for 1 second? Telling your story, even if it's part of the story in there, you have to tell it so many times, not just before people hear it, but for you to be able to tell it in a compelling way. So Jenny saying that thing of that phrase, where clothes go to die, drew her in. And that author, I'm sure, has talked to hundreds of people before she got on that interview and said those words that Jenny heard, and she realized this is a phrase that people love. And right. I think the process of blogging and podcasting and all that stuff is about you discovering what phrases draw people in.
100%. And, you know, I was driving when I heard about that story. I couldn't remember the title. I couldn't remember the author. I couldn't remember anything. But she was talking about going to a thrift store. And I remembered that phrase. So when I came home, I was able to put that in and I got it. This happened to me recently with a guy I was listening to who wrote a memoir about, he went to try to track down every vinyl album that he had owned as a teenager. He wanted them back. He wanted his collection back. And I heard the phrase, oh no, I can't remember it. It was so good. It was something about the hunt for, you know, my life in vinyl. And I actually heard about 10 seconds of this interview and was able to come home and put those words in and find the interview. And, you know, so it's those kind of stories behind the story that that you wanna get at. So it looks like Lorraine is trying to say something, but not quite there. So hopefully, Terry, you're welcome. Hopefully we'll get Lorraine's question maybe at the last one. And we hope this is, oh, she's just saying thank you. Okay. You're welcome. So we will call it a day, but Dan comes back to Author Accelerator from time to time to help bring his wisdom to the book writing process. And as you can see, his wisdom is deep and rich and really awesome. If you'd like to come back next week when Dan and I are talking specifically about his mastermind, how it works, why we think it works, why does collaboration work? Why can't you just go hire a publicist? Why can't you just throw money at some quick fix, you know, increase your blog readership program? Why is this the way? We're going to really dig into that. There'll be a lot of teaching in it. It's not just a sales call, although we're talking about a program that's for sale. I think Dan and I are incapable of not teaching when we're talking about these things. So we would love to have you come by, even if you're not planning on doing the mastermind this time. It's really useful and helpful and great. So we do hope you come, and you're welcome, Jocelyn and Hildegard and Lorraine. Spelling my name is so not important to me. It's not a problem. We're just glad you came, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jenny.
Bye,